Welcome everyone to Friday Night Young at Heart, featuring nursery rhymes, stories, songs, poems, Mother Goose, Aesop's fables, Lewis Carroll, limericks, larks, epics, stories of the great operas, poems, and such to keep us all young at heart. I'm Father James DeLuzio, back in the Polish Fathers Rectory Library here in New York City. This evening I'm going to share with you a little excerpt, more like a pericope, a little section from the novel we're reading for our book club here at St. Paul the Apostle Parish in New York City. We decided to read an old chestnut of a novel called A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. Now, I'm going to give you a summary of one of the chapters, one of the more delightful chapters, but if you have this book on your bureau or it's on your to-do list and you don't like spoilers, then it's time to tune out and wait for next week's Young at Heart, because I'm going to share what this chapter is about. But if you have read the book and would like to be reminded of some of it, or you are going to read it, which I do recommend, but don't like spoilers, turn the channel. So you've been warned. It's been prophesied. Okay. First of all, I do want to say a little bit about this novel, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. It takes place at the beginning of the last century, and I'm not quite finished yet, but it's going up to about World War I. It deals with very serious issues. It is a powerful growing up story, but it's also a revelation about poverty in the United States at the turn of the last century, sadly, which circumstances can still exist here today. And oh my goodness, but it's beautifully written. I had originally associated it with such novels as Little Women or The Secret Garden, but it's not like any of those at all. It's much more realistic. We really get a sort of an almost expose of living in dire poverty in this crazy nation of ours that, especially through the situation of immigrants. So it's timely to go back to it right now with all the debates about immigration and such. So if you've decided to stay with me, we have the Nolan family. They are Irish-German. And there's a mother, father. Kate's the mother. Johnny's the father. He has trouble with drinking. And he's a wonderful singer, but he only gets part-time jobs. Mother Kate works as a house cleaner for other people. She takes other jobs as she can. The children are Francine, also called Francie, and Neely, her brother. Francie's about 10 or 11, I guess, at the time this chapter occurs, and her brother's about 7-ish. Okay? All right. It's a Christmas day, and the children have some meager presents. Mostly everything that the kids get, which is minimal, is homemade things, little things their mother made for them, or their father was able to get them some candy, things like that. But it turns out that the Protestant churches in the area are hosting a kind of Christmas assembly for the children. And there will be games, and there'll be some prizes, and the kids really want to go, but their mom, Kate, is very strong identity Irish, not Irish, dad's Irish, German. Well, maybe she's German and Irish Catholic, and she doesn't want the children to go because it's a Protestant sponsored event. But after much cajoling and Dad, who said, please, let the kids go, so they finally go. So they are in this big assembly, this auditorium, and there's some games and prizes. And then it finally comes to near the end of the day, and a little girl from a very wealthy family comes onto the stage with one of the women who are the coordinators of this Christmas Day event, announcing that there will be a special prize for one little girl in the audience. It seems that the young little girl who's meticulously dressed, she's described as a very, very attractive little girl, beautiful little dress, has a doll with the exact same dress that the little girl is wearing. And it turns out that she received so many dolls for Christmas, she really felt bad, and she wants to share one of the dolls with one of the poor little girls from this poor neighborhood in Brooklyn, which is the setting for our story. Now, it's a bit sad in that the group of women who are running the event are continually reminding the children how important it is as Christians to be charitable. And this is why they're all so good-hearted, that they're having this special day for you who are so poor and needy. And so just know that it's our faith in Jesus that is bringing you this. That's very important for you to know. And so it's time then to decide who the little girl will be, who will get this beautiful doll. Now, as it turns out, Francie, also known as Francine, she's never had a doll in her whole life. And she's just in awe, as so many of the girls are. But the way it's presented is our little girl from the wealthy family says her name is Mary, that she'll give a doll to any of the poorest little girls whose name happens to also be Mary. Now, this is an Irish German neighborhood, and you can imagine how many little girls have Mary in their name. And of course, we know as much as our little protagonist, Francine, would love to have this doll. Her name is Francie. So the Betty Smith describes this in wonderful detail about the little girl's longing, but she also describes how the children are mortified, absolutely mortified, the way this present is being presented. No one wants to admit that they're in abject poverty. No one wants to admit, even these kids, they're like 5 to 12, wants to admit that they might have to go begging on the street or doing without because of whatever their situation might be. And Francie is also very conscious of that. But boy, does she want that doll. So no one stands to claim it. And Francie, knowing that her name isn't Mary, she stands up. Immediately, she is the object of ridicule of all the children on Christmas Day, no less. And there's part jealousy, but also the competition between the different kids, which is sadly all too typical of children. So as she makes her way through the hall, down the aisle, she's getting all these insults about being a beggar, being poor, some words we won't even say, but mostly because I can't remember, but really ridiculed awfully about being poor and that she has no pride going to get the doll. Well, she gets the doll, and it's like the best Christmas ever, and she's so attached to it as she goes back, but she starts getting the guilt, because her name is Francine. But even her brother, Neely, did not jump up and say, wait a minute, that's my sister, her name's not Mary, because he knew how much his sister would have enjoyed and wanted the doll. So when she goes home, she writes in her diary and she prays and prays for God to forgive her. And then after a little more explication of what's going on through her mind and her guilt, she decides, I've got it. I will be receiving confirmation soon, and I'm going to pick Mary as my confirmation name, and then God will be even It'll all come out in the end, and I will have Mary as my name. So she doesn't want to. She couldn't tell her parents, and certainly her mother, who was, as we said, very proud, and Neely's quiet too. They could not reveal how it is that she came about to get the doll. Not only because her name isn't Mary, but also because her mother would have been mortified that her daughter actually stood up, acknowledged that she was from one of the poor families, and wanted and needed a doll. Her mother would have made her throw it out because of the pride of the family, and the kids are very much aware of that. So nothing is said other than she won it. She won it in one of the games. So that's fine. And then after a while, it might be the next day, I don't quite remember. These little details, not as important. Are you enjoying this? I love this chapter. So she goes to her mother. Yeah, it is the next day. And not letting the doll out of her sight, by the way. And she says, you know, Mother, I'm thinking for my confirmation name, I think Mary would be perfect. Absolutely not, says her mother. Well, why on earth? I mean, she's the best, the highest of all the saints. Blessed Mary, Saint Mary, Mother of Jesus. She says, Francine, you can't take Mary as your confirmation name. Well, why not? Because your name is Mary Francine Nolan. We just never called you Mary before. And there you go, delightful ending to a very happy chapter. Again, so beautifully told, far better than I just shared it. So beautifully written as you follow the mind of this young girl and the mind of children and adults. So if you have never read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and even if you've seen the movie, the book is extremely rich and some powerful insights. It's great storytelling. So I commend it to you for your edification as well as your enjoyment. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. God bless. Stay healthy. Good night.